can honestly say that within a couple of weeks, it was like, and I always describe it as like a light switch. It's like someone turned the lights on.
Yeah.
And I guess as like the energy was moving through me for the first time, it wasn't like bolts of lightning. I'm this new person. It was like a fizz, and the nerves were starting to wake up, the feelings were starting to arise, the lights were starting to come on within me.
I want to welcome you to Identity Evolution, the podcast where we explore the moments that shape who we become. I'm your host, Lorena Schuth, somatic self-concept and identity coach, and I'm here to guide you through the raw and the real and the transformative stories of reinvention. Today's interview and final episode of season 1 of Identity Evolution is a story of peace, of presence, and calm. We're talking to my dear friend Jenny, who is a Kundalini Yoga teacher, a pregnancy and postpartum yoga teacher, and also a certified postpartum doula. Jenny is honestly the most gentle soul, and she's had a huge impact on my own journey, both as a friend and as a teacher. Today, she shares her powerful story of how a near-death experience completely woke her up and changed the trajectory of her life. From hedonistic partying and escapism to profound spiritual awakening. She shares where she used to be and how Kundalini Yoga helped her find her true self, become a doorway to healing trauma from a life-altering accident, and how she now lives her life with presence, with gratitude, and grounded spirituality as a teacher, as a mother, and as a guide. This story is powerful, but her energy alone will leave you feeling the sense of peace that you've been waiting to find within you. Hello, my love. Welcome, Jenny. It's good to have you here.
Hello.
So, yeah, I'm really excited to chat with you today because you have an incredible story to share. And you're both my Kundalini Yoga teacher and have been since 2019, which feels absolutely
Oh my
insane.
God, how long ago it was? Wow.
Yeah, it was early 2019 when I remember it vividly, walking towards you, and you gave me a hug immediately, and that was my very first class. And you were also the person who inspired me to got trained in the same modality. So I feel like I've got a lot to thank you for. So I'm really excited to have you on the podcast.
I just feel like I've known you a lot longer than 6 years. That's actually, thinking about it, it's not actually that long. Feels like
Yeah,
that.
that's true. I mean, time is an illusion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So, what we're going to talk about today is you have a very profound story of kind of the before you discovered Kundalini Yoga and your spirituality and the after. It's like night and day who you were before and who you are today and how you live your life today. So, I just want to take us back to before Kundalini Yoga and spirituality as a whole entered your life. What was your world like? What did your lifestyle, your identity, and your sense of self look like back then?
I guess the moment I often think about my life in like two chapters, and the separation in that would have been when I had a near death experience. And so that I always think of myself, before that and then after that. So it's like this is chapter 2, or the bonus round sometimes, as I often think of it. Or perhaps it was just that I was, so far off the path that, I wasn't listening, that the universe like gave me a really big shake and put me onto that path. And it doesn't always, um, it's not always a smooth, very rarely is that a smooth transition. But I have to say that that incident led me to Kundalini Yoga, which in turn led me to, I guess, open my eyes and become more aware of how I'd been living my life, why perhaps I'd had that experience of almost dying, and then, really, really listening. What is it that I'm here to do?
Yeah.
What, you know, who am I? And I think who am I is a question that I had from a very early age, but never really had the, I guess, the ability to articulate or the answers that that satisfied my questions, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. This is why I'm so excited to get into the story. I mean, it's a very existential question. Who am I? I think we don't talk about it enough that what, you know, who even, like, no one really knows who they are. Like, we identify ourselves through the things we do or our age or our gender, but
Mhm.
we, asking yourself who am I? That's a very existential question. That's something
Yeah.
that I've encountered in myself also, that I've encountered in my clients, because you're going through an ego death, and that's also what a near death experience will do. It will collapse things, right? Because you're faced with the reality of death. So I want to talk a little bit about before that you had that near death experience. You said you were quite unaware of how you were living your life. How were you living your life? What did your life look like?
Very hedonistically. I guess the questions that I had when I was younger were always like, what happens when I die? And it's not like what happens to my body. It wasn't that. It was like my question to myself, or the thing that would always worry me, was where do my thoughts go? Where does consciousness go? What am I, and I think it was like without knowing it, it was on a soul level.
Mm,
And so, I guess I was quite, just to sum it up, quite an anxious child, as I remember it to be, like, because I had these questions and I'm not, wasn't getting any answers. You go to heaven. I was like, "Mm." And then, as I became um, a teenager, I discovered that, I'm very sociable, but very much fueled by alcohol and parties and friends. And I love my friend, and I still do. And I still have that friendship group. So I don't feel like I'm a completely different person to what I was then. I feel like I'm still able to relate to all of those beautiful friendships, but there was something in me that transitioned. And so I think from there, I just, even all the way up to the time that I had the car accident, I was living my life very hedonistically. Parties, drink, boys, all of those, good times. Um, the things that were important to me were my friends, my family, and just having a great time. I mean, I wasn't that interested in school, although I didn't do badly, but I didn't do great. I think I always had that ability, that need to understand a little bit more of the human condition. So I studied psychology at university. Um, Again, parties, friends, boys, and then after university, I went traveling, and again, it was parties. I wanted to learn about other cultures. I wanted to see the world, but I don't think I ever brought a lot of consciousness to it. It was just like I wanted to have a good time. Like a good time was really the driver for all of it.
I just want to stop here for a moment, because I love that you said, I'm not a completely different person, right? Like,
Mhm.
you're not a completely different person. You still have friends from back then, and you still have a connection to this version of yourself. And given that this podcast is about identity shifts and essentially a rebirth, I think that's important to remember as well. These are all different aspects of you, right? You've just uncovered a new aspect of you, a new way of living life, but that doesn't eradicate completely who you were before, right? That's just, a part of yourself that doesn't front quite as much anymore, but that doesn't mean she doesn't exist at all. So I love that you kind of highlighted that as well.
Yeah, I think that wasn't an immediate realization. That's something that, was a bit rocky for a while. I was like, do I need to remove myself from all of these situations? But it's finding your feet whereby you can still be yourself and the people who love you still accept you for your new, I guess,
Identity.
my new way of relating. Say, my new
I said identity.
my new identity, yeah, on brand. My new identity. I guess it's just my new way of relating and understanding myself and how I live my life. And I think I'm still able to still be in those situations and be, have those friendships because there's a humility, there's a humble humility, I
Mhm.
guess, of still having friendships with people who you've grown up with.
Yeah.
Like it really there's a grounding there. I think when we step into the spiritual world, we can often get carried away again
Mhm.
with identity. It's like, oh, this is my new identity and this is what I do. And whereas
Spiritual
there's something
ego.
really, yeah, there's something really humbling about being with your mate that's known you since you were like 8 and being like, what? What? All right, whatever, but what are you chatting about? Like that for me is very grounding. Or like, having my brother mock me for the things that I do, but in a loving way. Like nobody has ever made me question the way that I live my life. Well, maybe they have, but they're not my friends anymore.
Yeah.
But the people that are still in my life very much accept me for who I am, that I teach yoga, that I chant mantras that from another language, all of those things that seem really woo-woo, but that I'm still myself. I'm
Yeah.
still this isn't like an identity that I'm a completely different person. It's just that these are the things that help me feel connected to who I am. And
Mhm.
therefore there's even like a bit of an inspiration of, oh, she can, live her life how she wants, but still be the same, fundamentally the same person with the same personality. Like it'd be very exhausting to try and have a complete personality
Mhm.
transplant. It's just almost like an unlayering of like, I've always been that person. It's just taking back the conditioning of the person that I was told that I had to be,
Yeah.
or the life that I should be living according to the trajectory of a typical person within a culture that is such as ours. I don't subscribe to that. And I think if anything, perhaps it could potentially inspire people to be more in their truth, and
Mhm.
and not to just follow the signposts that they've been given, but rather follow the signposts that come from within them, the things that light them up, the things that make them happy, the things that bring joy and peace and authenticity. And yeah.
I love that. I love how you phrase that because I always like to say that, you know, changing your self concept, kind of becoming a new version of yourself, isn't about becoming somebody new. It's actually more like becoming more of you. As you say, you're just
Mhm.
peeling off the layers. You're just accessing parts of yourself that have been buried or that have been hidden. But, it doesn't mean that you're suddenly a completely different person because at your core, you will always be who you are. So I love that you kind of emphasize that as well. But before we go actually into the big wake up call, right? When you had the accident and everything, before then, when you had this lifestyle and you were living a bit more unaware, did you already have some quiet signs or whispers that maybe this can't go on like this forever? And maybe you kind of said already you always were kind of a bit of a seeker, right? Like a someone who wanted to understand life and death and the human condition. So was there already like a little bit of a seed before this experience even happened, before you had the accident?
I think just the restlessness of like, it's I don't think I had the awareness at the time to realize it, but it would, be about a year and a half to 2 years where I would start to feel this restlessness of like, oh, it's not here. Whatever it is I'm looking for is not here. I better move. And so I would just, every year to 2 years, I would like move. I taught English as a foreign language, so it really worked well for me to just move around the world and teach or nanny or, just, go for a snowboarding season here or there. But I think never having the conscious awareness to be like, oh, I'm looking for something that is actually perhaps within me. I never did. I was the person that left the yoga class before Shavasana. I was that person. I did tall boxing. It was very much like, it was all like dopamine hits, dopamine hits. It was all,
Very
chasing
masculine as well.
very masculine energy, very okay, so it's not here, so I'd better move. It's where I am. It's the people that are around me, but it's not satisfying this kind of emptiness that is within. And so I don't think I ever had the conscious awareness to go like, no, there's something unsettled within you. Could you, I didn't. I just, would move and go, maybe it's here that I'm going to find what I'm looking for. And it never really, you know, obviously now I can bring that awareness of like, actually what you were looking for was just a deeper connection to self, and everything else would have just fallen into place. But no, the restlessness was the whisper, I think.
That's really interesting. I didn't even know this part of your story. And the reason I was smiling so big is because I relate so hard. Like, I did the same thing. I would move every 6 months almost to a new place, to a new place. And even, now living in Scotland, where I've been for a decade, that wasn't the plan. And it was only because I woke up to something similar to what you're describing, which is kind of like, well, nothing's ever changing. I go to a new place and there are new people and it's a new environment, but I still feel the same. I still have the same experiences. And eventually it became clear to me that maybe the only thing that never changes is me. I'm trying to run from myself, but I'm actually always taking myself with me. So, yeah, that's really cool that we have kind of that parallel. I didn't even know that. But let's move into the actual accident and that experience. Before that even happened, what was the time leading up to the accident? Like, where were you living? What were you doing? Because you were moving around a lot, weren't you?
It sounds like I'm making it up, but I was working for Russian oligarchs as a nanny.
Okay.
So I was living in Russia.
It's like I'm making it up.
I
Okay.
know it does sound like I'm making it up. So I was working for this really rich banking family for the daughter. I hope the Russians don't tap this. And then that's the KGB on your ass. And then we were, so, this was I actually had a Brazilian boyfriend from that I met in Australia, but I decided that he was taking his sweet time, so I was going to go and get a job in Russia, nannying this too. I'd never nannied before. So I was nannying this young boy. We were on holiday in Turkey, and I think it perfectly sums up actually just how erratic my decisions were. I'd just come back from a weekend of being in Lebanon with
So many different countries.
with these. So we were in Turkey, having nannying now in Turkey for the summer with these Russians. And I met these Lebanese people, and they were like, "Do you want to come to Lebanon, to Beirut for the weekend, to a wedding?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So had my weekend off planned, went to Beirut, had like an absolutely crazy weekend, no sleeping, just mental, at this Lebanese wedding. Incredible weekend. But then I came back to Turkey on the Monday, and I feel like I can remember the exact feeling that I had. I was like, something has to change because
Oh.
this is mental. This is like crazy. And almost like this sense of absolute peace came over me. You'd think that after a weekend of partying and all like just crazy stuff all weekend, that on the Monday I'd be a wreck, but I had this absolute sense of calm and peace that I can't even explain it. I felt like I was about to, I really, looking back on it, was that something's going to change.
Wow.
And then on the Tuesday, I was in a car accident. And again, the decisions that I was making, it was almost like I was playing with my life. Like life was a game. And I was just like, ah, fuck it, we'll do this, we'll do that. I went out with my boss, my Russian boss. She wanted to go shopping. We were drinking bottles of champagne in the car. Like, just so irresponsible. She's driving the car. And obviously, yeah, both of us were in the car. She drove off a cliff, and then we don't remember anything from the moment we got into the car to the moment we woke up in hospital. Yeah, it was pretty serious. So
Whew. That
it was like I was just playing, like my life was a game, and I was just like,
not
I
taken
can do
seriously.
anything. I wasn't taking it seriously. I wasn't listening. I wasn't, for a very privileged, you know, person coming from a happy family who had lots of friends and everyone loved them, loved me and just wanted the best for me. I was just being really irresponsible with life, with my life, with, I guess, even my family. Like if I'm, I have a daughter now. If she was doing the things that I was doing, I'm glad my mum didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow. I mean, I think it's so impactful that you said you felt this sense of peace. Like it's almost like your soul or your intuition like gave you like a little nudge that like change is on the horizon, even though you couldn't make sense of it in that moment, or it was
Mhm.
just a feeling. And then that after that accident happened, that is just wild. That just shows you like nothing in life is a coincidence. Like this was,
No.
I'm always careful, like on this podcast, I interview a lot of people about very traumatic experiences, which that is too, right? That's a huge trauma to experience an accident like that and something so life altering. And so that's why I always hesitate to kind of like, I always want to be careful not to minimize it, right? But at the same time, there is something about, these experiences that can really shape our trajectory, sometimes for the better, even if the experience itself is horrible, right?
Oh my gosh, 100%. It was a gift. Yeah. And I've really, the last, since 2012, the last 13 years have, I've always come back to, I have no, um, I, shame. Well, I had shame for a long time about my behavior leading up to it. And, but I think I've worked on that and like really realized that, it was a gift. I never felt angry at my boss, who was actually younger than me. She's a young Russian mum.
Mm.
I never felt angry at her. I don't think I've ever felt like it's unfair. And I have been left with some like physical stuff after being in that car accident, but I've never felt like, oh, this is so unfair. It was an absolute gift that I'm still here, and that everything that happened to me brought me to what I'm doing now. And that's, I think, such a beautiful way to be able to frame it, and that it was a gift, and that, even the things that I've been left with are like, well, it's okay, I'm still here, like it's a reminder that I got this bonus, right?
Mm-hmm.
To,
Yeah.
meet my husband, to become a mother, to, really deepen my connection with my family and my friends, and meet all of the new people that are in my life. Like it's an absolute gift, and it, very rarely do I not think about how lucky I am to be here and to experience a deeper sense of self
Mm-hmm.
because of it.
Wow. Yeah, it's so beautiful. And, as intense as that experience must have been, um, I think so many people just don't have that gratitude. They just live like day to day. And I need to remind myself constantly, like, be grateful. You're getting to breathe. You're getting to wake up in the morning.
Mhm.
You're getting to see the sunrise and the sunset. You're getting to cuddle your cat. Like, you're getting to feel with your body and feel the whole spectrum of emotions. And touch and all the senses, and it's such a gift, and we often just don't think about it because we just get trapped in the day to day and in the mundane. So I'm I'm curious because that was such a big wake up call, but do you remember what the first thoughts or realizations were that you had in the aftermath of this experience, of this accident?
Um, I think once I'd gotten, like, because there was times whilst being in intensive care that I just thought I was going to die. Um, and so the first aftermath was fear. And I think looking back, and again, not having the conscious awareness to realize it in the moment, but the fear was that those questions that I had in the beginning weren't answered. What happens when I die? Where does my consciousness go? I wasn't comfortable with death. I was scared of death. Um, and so I was in a real state of obviously fear and shock. And then, yeah, and I guess then elation that I'm here. And then, oh my God, still the hedonist was with me. Well, I just need to live my life fully. I'm going to move to Brazil and be with the love of my life, which he was not. But, so off I went to Brazil and just got deeper and deeper into this, like, I guess the trauma really followed me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in this state of PTSD for a good few years afterwards, in which time I was quite heavily medicated to kind of numb out what was going on. I had chronic migraine, I was depressed, but I was kind of flip-flopping between like, I'm here and like, oh my God, I'm still here.
Wow.
Um,
It's interesting to also hear that because yeah, it's a huge trauma and you were faced with your own mortality, and you can kind of see in what you're describing that it brought up like a few different, like it brought up a whole new chaos because you were almost like flip-flopping back and forth between like feeling miserable, like being in this trauma, which I think is so important to mention that as well. Like these big wake-up calls, they're not smooth. It's not like, oh, now I'm grateful and now I'm living my life and I'm exploring a new avenue. It's not that simple. It takes time, it takes a lot of healing, and you you had this experience of even wanting to go back to your old way of living or even to go more into it. So I think that's really, really important to mention that it's not that simple, right? And it's actually really, really hard.
it's not clean cut. It wasn't like, oh, this is the new me. That's when the work began.
So how did that experience and then the aftermath of that, because you said you were quite depressed and you even started saying now this is when the work began, like what happened then? Did you go a bit more on a search for a discovery of spirituality, especially because you said you didn't get that answer of like what happens after death? You were faced with that fear of death, with that mortality. You were dealing with the trauma of everything. So how did that crack open your new path?
I think, as with most people who come to yoga practice, not most, but a lot of yoga people who come to a yoga practice, my physical body was in a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I was dealing with the physical effects of being in a, full frontal car crash. So, shoulder stuff, um, migraines, and yeah. Oh, I should try some yoga. That'd be really good for my shoulders. And thank God that the yoga that I tried was Kundalini Yoga.
Yeah, I'm like the fact that it was specifically Kundalini Yoga of all the possible types of yoga, which
Yeah,
it's like I love it, but it's like the weird one, in comparison
it's
to
a
the
weird
very
one.
westernized ones.
And even the teacher, who was Brazilian, and she said in Portuguese, I went with a friend to this yoga class, and like some moments in your life are forks. This is a fork. She said to us, oh, I teach two types of yoga. I teach hatha yoga and I teach this weird type of yoga called Kundalini Yoga. Which would you like to do? Because it was just me and my friend in the class, and she was like, I can teach whichever one. And we just looked at each other and we went, the weird one.
I love that.
give us the weird one. And that was it. And it wasn't like I skipped out of that class a new person, but I can honestly say that within a couple of weeks, it was like, and I always describe it as like a light switch. It's like someone turned the lights on.
Yeah.
And I guess as like the energy was moving through me for the first time, in my life, that Kundalini energy, like waking it gently with a Kundalini yoga practice. It wasn't like bolts of lightning. I'm this new person. It was like a fizz, and the nerves were starting to wake up, the feelings were starting to arise, the lights were starting to come on within me. And again, over a period of a few months, and these things are never instantaneous. And I think that's what I would love people to take away from it, is that it's not, we so want this instantaneousness of the modern world. We want this instant gratification. We want it right now. We want it within one session, maybe 2 sessions. We want one pill to take once a day and that's it, and we're done. It was like over a period of like months. And again, just the first part was just this realization that I am not in the right place, and that my Brazilian partner at the time, are not the person that I am meant to be with. And so it was honestly, it was like that was a lightning bolt of like realization. One day it was just like, and then the next day I was gone on a flight, left all my stuff, goodbye.
Wow.
So months leading up to it, and then whoa, okay, I'm not meant to be here, but goodbye.
Wow. So, okay. Well, I need to take a breath here. That's incredible. Like how, I mean, just before I actually ask anything else, can you just briefly say what Kundalini energy is?
Mm. um, mm. Kundalini energy is something that every living being has within them, within us. It sits at the base of the spine, coiled. Kundo is like the lock of the beloved. So we think of this spiraling energy, and it sits dormant in most, if we're asleep and we're not moving in the way that I guess I was living previously, it kind of sits dormant, waiting to be awakened. And with Kundalini energy is not exclusive to Kundalini Yoga, but we work directly with the energy in Kundalini Yoga. So with the breath work, with the mantra, with the movement that we're doing, we're looking to like awaken this energy, this primal energy that is, with, like I say, within all living beings, and to awaken it so that it moves through the channels of the body, awakening energy centers or chakras, awakening our consciousness as well, or really, uplifting our consciousness if we're already in that state of like conscious awareness.
Yeah.
So really activating glands, throughout the body, but in the brain, that help to secrete hormones that bring around more of an awareness, more of a sense of well-being, a sense of who we are.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what was happening in me. It was just this gradual process of like, okay, we're coming up, we're wakening up, we're lighting up, and then we're realizing what it is that what I realized what it was that I had to do. Not there in a big way, like you are going to do this. It was just like the next step is leaving here and going home to heal,
Yeah.
to being with my family, to, really healing from that. And then I think, again, it's not linear. When I moved back to Edinburgh, when I moved back to Linlithgow, just outside Edinburgh, to Scotland, shall we say? I don't know who's listening. So when I moved back to Scotland, we're habitual creatures, aren't we? Still chasing that party and the boys and the good times and the friends. So I was still, like coming back to what it was that I knew. And that was escaping myself. So it's never like this. Like for me, it's definitely been like this, okay. And then finding after maybe a year of this, like, okay, I'm back home, put some roots down. What am I going to do next? Found a Kundalini yoga class. Eventually after a good few months of being back in Scotland. And then off we went again. Okay, this is not what's going to bring you joy. This is not what's going to bring you happiness. Is this like, chasing the next thing, the next high? Actually, let's start to do some work on ourselves. Let's start to look inwards. What is it that we need to shift? What is it that we need to change? And just getting up every morning and doing my practice and sitting with myself. And
I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I promise the second half will be even better. If you have been enjoying this conversation and you want to embark on your own self-concept transformation, then download my free self-concept mastery blueprint to get started with your own identity evolution. The link is in the show notes. Now let's get back to the interview.
The next step of the journey was then doing the Kundalini Yoga training. And as soon as I said yes to doing this Kundalini Yoga training, I really started to clean up, the way that I was living. And then I met my husband, and it's all, yeah. It was like this alignment of the way I started to relate to myself and the people then that came into my life because of the way that I was relating to myself and the way I was allowing myself to be treated.
Yeah. Really beautiful. And I love also the way you described, how Kundalini Yoga works with Kundalini energy. And, you kind of shared your own experience. You said like, it was like the lights had switched on. And it is that because it's just a feeling of being alive, like what you kind of described of like the energy kind of going through the body. That's aliveness, right? That's life force essentially. And it's really beautiful for me in Kundalini Yoga that it's because some people listening may have heard of Kundalini awakenings, right? Which is kind of described as this, rapture, like, being ripped apart. And I've not experienced that, but I love that in Kundalini Yoga, you're doing it slow and you're doing the same thing essentially, but you're doing it slow and gradually. And it sounds like you had this experience where slowly things were waking up, and yes, you were going back to like your old ways of living, which is so normal, right? It's never going to be linear. But you had an awareness, right? You had a consciousness that previously you were able to kind of push into the shadow and not deal with, and now you had this awareness. So it's also interesting because Kundalini Yoga it wasn't a path you chose actively. It was a path that was opened up to you because this one day you made the choice to say, let's do the weird type of yoga, right? So it's nice to see all these little synchronicities and these little choices that we make and how that leads us to, where we end up and where we are going. And there's just so much in your story that feels really divine, right? Divinely guided. And let's talk about when you actually like came back to Scotland, because how much time had passed between you discovering Kundalini Yoga and you deciding, I'm making the choice to leave this relationship and to go back home and to heal and to prioritize that.
It was about 6 months, and I'd started doing the class weekly from about then. But then I was like, okay, I need more of this. And then I started doing it twice a week.
Like a drug.
Yeah, it's like a drug. It was. But then, I was still on, like, I was occasionally taking a sedative. I was on antidepressants. So there's a numbing that happens with these medications that like it's as much as like the Kundalini Yoga like really, started to awaken things within me because of the effects I believe. And again, it can only come from my experience because everyone is on different things for different reasons. But in my experience, there was like a dampening still from, and I guess looking back, it's, I didn't have my safety network. I didn't have my support network. I was living in a foreign country. I didn't speak the language. I didn't have anyone there that I knew other than my partner. therefore, of course, I needed something to take the edge off of, like, so, you know, there was also, as much as the Kundalini Yoga was really awakening me to something, to the truth of the way I was living, there was also this dampening of everything from the medications that I was taking.
Yeah.
And I don't blame myself for going back into, like, the drinking and everything when I got back to Scotland, because I stopped taking anything. When I left Brazil, I just came cold turkey
Oh,
off of it
wow.
all. Yeah.
That's intense.
On the 30th of December,
Oh, wow.
New Year's Eve, flew back for New Year's party, got so wasted, and woke up on the 1st of January, like, no medication, hangover, left my relationship. What the hell am I going to do? That was
Wow.
a shiter of a of a New Year's Day.
That's
Um,
like even almost just as much of a rupture as the accident itself, and you know that wake up call to that's like the internal awakening, right? That's the wake up call of like the choices I'm making, and yeah, that's
mhm,
wild. So then you flew back to Scotland, and
mhm.
you continued devoting yourself to your practice. Is that
No, 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 no,
you went
no.
straight back to
Devote myself to the party, Lorena.
okay, so then you went fully back into your old ways for the time being.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I was like, I'm never gonna find that weird yoga back in Scotland. Like,
Okay.
but remember, it was 2013, so yeah, there was like, I wasn't. I don't think I was on, like, any Facebook, maybe, but I don't feel like things were like, as, like, you know, you're aware of so many things. So I was like, I'm never gonna find that.
Especially with Kundalini Yoga, like I when I found your class, I was really looking for Kundalini Yoga.
Mhm,
I had received messages everywhere of this, you know, Kundalini Yoga, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I heard about it everywhere
mhm,
on podcasts and you know different places, and I googled it, and I was like, that's weird. Don't want to do that. I don't want to chant in front
mhm,
of people. But then I felt this pull, and I googled it, and your class was literally the only thing I found, and I'm very
mhm.
grateful for that. But it just shows you in 2019 how little there
Yeah.
was even in 2019.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so, like,
2013.
2014, I think it was, I started, like, yeah, it's 2014. So I think I found Kirsten's class um maybe about, I can't remember how far into that year. It must have been towards the end of the year,
Mm-hmm.
because it was 2015 that I then started doing my training.
Yeah. So
But no, I went straight back into the old ways of, oh, the only way I knew
yeah.
how to, you know, I was like, well, I'm never going to find that, because I hadn't developed a personal practice then. I was going twice a week, but I hadn't even thought about the concept of having a yoga mat and, you know, doing my own practice. That was just so far, still so far out of my field. It was just like, no, you go to a yoga teacher for your stuff, you know. And then it wasn't until 2015 that I was like, oh, I can actually learn to do this and deepen my own practice. And that's when I started getting up every morning at 5:40 and sitting on my mat and sitting with myself. And that's when so much shit came up.
Because you were in silence just with you and no one else.
My silence, moving my body with my subconscious mind. And, like, so it was so healing, you know, looking back on it now, so healing, but so confronting as well,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So what then inspired you to do the training?
One of the teachers, Carmen, was just like, why don't you just join? And it was halfway through, and she was like, just join, just do it. And I was like, working a corporate job, which I'd never done in my life, working in an office, like, oh my God, hating it. But again, looking back, it's where I met my husband. It's where I met one of my best friends. It's, you know, it was such a necessary chapter, and you know, I'm just sitting in that, sitting there, being a bit uncomfortable for a few years brought me so much, but I had to sit there. And so I kind of pacified myself of being in this office job, which felt like I honestly felt like I was in a cage.
Mm.
Um, and it felt so unnatural to me. But I was like, oh, but it's okay. I'm gonna, you know, do this Kundalini yoga training at the same time. And so I was like, the corporate job will pay for my training and everything. So yeah, that's, I think the inspiration was that I need to do something
Mm-hmm.
that is not this insanely rigid 8:30 to 5:30 Monday to Friday thing that is like the most opposite to me that could ever be.
Yeah.
Where I had to like put on a, nice shirt and heels.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to ask, what do you love most about the modality? What do you love most about Kundalini Yoga?
The mantra. I think I love the way that it works quite profoundly in a short space of time. I love the sense of peace that I get from the practice, like how it just can really clear the chatter in the mind. I love the way it makes my body feel. I love what it's given me, and that is like an understanding of what happens after we're here, a peace with death as well, like really learning about this ancient wisdom has given me such a deep sense of peace that, it's okay if I face death again. It's okay if people in my life die. Like it's not like this horrendously final thing that I always thought it was when I was younger, and that I was so scared of. I feel like I'm not scared anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So, what have been the biggest changes in your life since you started embracing Kundalini Yoga, devoting yourself to your practice, kind of embracing your spirituality as a whole?
That I don't live so much in fear.
So, it's more like the internal change that's been the most impactful?
But also the way that I relate to myself, like that self, and without it sounding, it always sounds cheesy when you say self-love, but actually realizing that I didn't like myself very much. And I think the practice really, dedicating those mornings to myself, and actually beginning to work on the relationship I had with me, um, and to actually love myself, not just the bits that are celebrated, but also the bits that I've probably been running away from a lot of the time, or what would be considered, my limitations or my flaws, or the bits that make us fully human, but really embracing those and accepting those and integrating, all of that into the acceptance of who I am.
Yeah.
And in turn, that's changed my external world. But it had to start within.
Yeah, it always does. I think like that's really something that I want people to take away from, from this podcast, from my work, from what you shared, is that every change, every manifestation that we experience outside of ourselves really starts within. It starts with the way you perceive yourself, the way you treat yourself, how you walk through the world, the actions you take, who you are being, what you are thinking, feeling, like your energy. It starts with you, and you looking at your own patterns, you looking at your own shadows, you healing and integrating and really embodying this innate, state of wholeness. We're all whole all the time, but sometimes we just can't fully feel it. And that is actually what creates the external changes. And I think your story is a really beautiful example of that. Um, so what have the physical changes been? The changes in your external world, in your relationships, and how you're living your life, physically, like how is your life now different from the way it was pre-accident,
Hmm.
Kundalini yoga, pre everything?
Um, well, first of all, I've been able to be in a relationship with someone who's really, on a soul level, really aligned with me. And, I can really accept that love from him as well, because of how much I do believe that changing the relationship with myself attracted someone into my life that, really, really loves me and takes care of me, and that I really love him, and we want to do this together. I think that was maybe what was different before, is the type of partners I was attracting weren't really able to fully accept me, but then I wasn't able to really fully accept myself. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was that, you know,
It's a mirror.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
Um,
powerful.
but also just, yeah, I think that's what, on a relatable level to other people in my life, I'd say that's, that depth and consciousness, be presence,
Mm.
I think is a big
Yeah.
word. And don't get me wrong, like I'm still a fallible human. I still get angry, and I still, struggle with, you know, different. Became when I became a mother. That was, I'm not this perfect human being that's living their life with like absolute gratitude and conscious awareness 100% of the time. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still, experiencing the roller coaster that is the human experience, the human existence. It's just done with, a lot more reflection and space for gratitude and space, these spaces of reflecting on myself and how I'm affecting
Mm-hmm.
the world around me. Because so much of the time it is coming from like the way that we allow ourselves to be treated, or the way that we're showing up in a relationship, rather than the fact that there's so much of the time you're like, oh, this is unfair, or that person's doing this, or that's because of that person. It's like a lot of the time, actually, the only thing that we can control is ourselves in a situation. And so there's that's what the practice gives me now. It's like this space for reflection of like, where is it that I'm perhaps not showing up, or where is it that perhaps I'm not making, the right contribution to this relationship or this situation, or what is my part playing in that?
Yeah. That in itself is an identity shift, right? That
Mhm.
in itself is just a shift in the way you see yourself, the way you show up. That's the rebirth. We're gonna close with a little closing ritual, but before we do that, I just want to see, is there anything that you want to share that you feel like you haven't had the chance to say yet?
Mm. No, I feel like that's complete for me. Yeah, I feel like you've really, yeah, gotten the snapshot of the before and after.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
the journey and just the power of the experience and the integration as well that you've had, because a lot of this is about how we integrate experiences. And because I say this in almost every episode, that if an experience is incredibly traumatic like yours was, we have a choice of what we do after that, right? We have a choice of, and you let yourself collapse, right? You dealt with PTSD, and you had to face that, and you were depressed. And it's not that we're not allowed to collapse after. Of course we are, but we always have a choice. Do you then get up and you know try to heal from that and try to change something, or do you go back to your old ways fully? Because of course it's normal to go back to the old patterns, but then you have a choice every day of whether you stay in those, or whether even the next day is the day that you're like, maybe today I can do something different and be different and show up differently.
Mhm. Mhm.
Great. So we're gonna do a little closing ritual. It's basically like a little quick fire round of 3 questions. One question is about the past, one is about the present, and one is about what's just beyond the horizon.
Okay.
So the question about the past is, if the version of you from, I often say a year ago, but in your case, we can say from before the accident, right? If that version of you watched your life for one day, what would surprise them the most?
Hmm. I think that I'm married, and that I'm a mother.
Mm-hmm.
and that I live in the town that I grew up in. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
so adamant that I was going to be living abroad and just living this hedonistic lifestyle, or this, I was quite comfortable with that. That was who I was going to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I've put roots down in my hometown
Yeah.
and married with a child.
So marriage and children was never a desire of yours?
Mm,
Wow.
no.
That's a big shift as well. Yeah.
Yeah, huge. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so for the present, if you were cast in a film as your current self, what would the genre be?
Um, oof, it'd be really boring. It'd be really boring now. Like, ooh, like, so it's in this timeline. Oh God. Oh, Lorena. You can't say comedy. I'm not very funny.
I think you are funny.
So it'd be right now in this moment. Oh,
In this
like
phase of your life.
in this phase of my life, what would the genre be
Mm-hmm.
in a movie?
Mm-hmm.
Romance.
Oh, cute. I was thinking like a little family film,
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Something cozy and wholesome.
Yeah, me cooking, and I mean, people would be bored. They'd switch off. Tell you that. They wouldn't have been as exciting if it had been cast like a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. The Russian episodes, that would have been a great one. Russian espionage.
Okay, let's move on to the future, the
Mhm.
becoming. If the next version of you, whoever you're becoming right now, because we're always becoming someone, right? We're always evolving. If the next version of you was a landscape, what scenery would you now be walking into?
Oh, a forest. A
I love that.
forest, definitely. 100% with a stream, birds, pure nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see you as that already.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that.
Take some
Well,
robes.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for your presence and your wisdom. This was such an amazing conversation. And I will link all of your platforms and the ways people can work with you in the show notes as well. I know you're not just doing Kundalini Yoga, but you're also doing a multitude of other things, including postnatal support, and you do a lot of in person things as well. So I'll link everything below, but if you've got anything coming up towards the end of 2025 or already in the books for next year, or you have other ways that people can work with you, I just want to give you the space now to share what's on offer and how people can connect with you.
So yeah, I'm gonna start an online. I don't do a lot of things online after COVID. I've definitely got exhausted by that, but I'm gonna start doing some online Kundalini yoga beginning on the 13th of October. It's Monday night. It'll just be fortnightly. And I run events in Edinburgh. And I'm looking to start some Kundalini yoga in Edinburgh as well. Maybe just
I'm coming.
one-offs,
I'm
one-offs here
coming.
and there. It's just not happening right now in Edinburgh. There's nobody doing much. So yeah, I think I'm gonna organize a few of those. Um, and yeah, I run a yearly retreat in Scotland in May. It usually fills up. We're full for 2026, but 2027 still has spaces, and I'm taking the relaxed pace of life and just running one retreat at the moment, and it's Kundalini yoga. It's like, really living in harmony with our natural cycles as women, and just having a really nice time in nature, in a beautiful, beautiful part of the world, on the west coast of Scotland. So,
I love that.
and yeah, doula clients I'm taking on for 2026, across central Scotland as well too. help mums after birth with food and body work and just general postpartum care.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. I will link your Instagram and your website and everything below where people can find out about all of this. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Lorena. Thank you, my love. So good to chat to you. Thank you for having me.
I absolutely love having these conversations because every story really reminds us that you can use any experience for your evolution, not just your breakdown. It also shows us that transformation is never linear. It's personal, it's messy, and it's what makes us human. I'm Lorena Schuth, and this was Identity Evolution. Come and find me on Instagram at Lorena Schuth, linked in the show notes, and DM me and share your key takeaway from this episode with me. I would love to know. You'll also find guest links and details in the show notes if you want to connect more deeply with them. And you'll also find my self-concept coaching program, Recreate Yourself, if you are feeling ready for your identity shift. If this episode stirred something in you, make sure you subscribe and ideally leave a quick review and rating wherever you are listening or watching. This really, really helps more people find these stories of self-reinvention. See you next time.